Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, because gentlemen do get this too, it's caused by...
a one-celled organism that lives in the intestines that in its budding state looks like this. It's just a bud, and as Jeff mentioned, when it gets invasive, it goes through a stage that becomes a thread. And these threads invade into these intestinal walls and produce little holes in the intestine which allow the metabolites from the yeast to go into the body, plus incompletely digested food can be absorbed through the intestines.
So it breaks down the intestine walls, and things that shouldn't go through the walls start to go through the walls, and you get problems.
That's right.
That's pretty simple.
And then the problems can manifest in the brain, which means brain fog, poor concentration, problems with learning, memory, and fatigue. Fatigue is the big problem. It's the overall, you come to a doctor, oh, I have fatigue. It could be a dozen things. In the throat, people will get chronic mucus, postnasal drip, sore throats, which appear like infections. If you have a sore throat for more than a couple of weeks, you go to your doctor and you get an antibiotic. As I mentioned before, antibiotics, you swallow them, they get into the intestines and kill off good and bad bacteria, and then these yeast, little buddies, can overgrow.
Because you're killing off, one of the problems with the antibiotics is it kills off the good guys, so the bad guys grow.
Yeah, because the good guys are there to keep the bad guys from overgrowing. So then in the stomach, you've got people who complain about gas and bloating. People will eat some sugar and create an actual still in their stomach, and they'll bloat up at 5 months pregnant. You hear that all the time. People who can't wear anything tight. So the stomach is a big problem. And as I mentioned, the intestines. In the muscles, you'll get these metabolites that will actually irritate the muscles and cause muscle fatigue and aches and pains.
So although it does, the source of it is the intestines, it does in fact take over the body, in that it can be everywhere in the body.
Yes.
And anywhere.
Yes.
And also on your skin?
Yes.
What do you have in your skin?
Skin rashes, what is it, jock itch?
Right.
Jock itch. And
I don't know, Carolyn, I'm not really familiar with
that. Women get a lot of rashes under their breasts with heat and moisture under there. Any sort of athlete's foot. And dandruff, seborrheic dermatitis, the scaly skin on the face. It looks like you have skin dandruff. And just about any skin infection or irritation, like eczema, can be made worse by having Candida.
Okay, have a seat. Thank you for our lesson in, what's the word I want when you talk about parts of the body?
Anatomy.
Anatomy. Thank you, Jeff. Merle, you are very familiar with this story because you had this problem.
Yes, I did. I developed asthma, bronchial asthma, when I was about 6 months old, and spent a lot of my childhood taking various antibiotics for the condition, and my asthma just continued to get worse and worse. And by the time I was around 21, I couldn't walk 20 feet without taking a breath of Ventolin.
Really?
I just constantly, particularly when the weather got hot and muggy, was totally incapacitated by asthma, and I began to think that, you know, I'd be spending the rest of my life almost as a cripple. And then Jeff suggested that I try this cleansing program and begin to do some work with Candida. This was 6 years ago, after doing one cleansing and detoxification program for 7 days. The asthma began to fade, less and less. I don't think, well, I haven't used a Ventolin spray at all in the past 5 years. Every year I buy one, thinking, well, maybe, you know, it's just in remission.
It's going to hedge my bet here, right?
Yeah. But nothing, not a trace of it. I exercise, I jog, I lead a perfectly normal, healthy life, and it's like it was just Candida. Never there.
Antibiotics seem to be a major culprit here, and you said earlier this is a disease of the last 20 or 30 years, and in great part because people have taken antibiotics, which destroys the good stuff, so the bad guys start to grow, right? Right. But the treatment for it, the treatment is, it's not a very radical treatment, it's diet. It's cutting out those foods and cleaning out your system. I mean, there are no drugs involved here, are there, or?
Not necessarily. The treatment has different aspects to it. One of the most important ones is diet. So one has to cut out the offenders, the things that stimulate yeast, and these are yeast-related products.
It's a fairly strict diet, you know. I should like to quote somebody who was reading the diet because they thought they had Candida, and they read the diet and said, to heck with it, I'll just keep the Candida. The diet is fairly tough, stringent. Well,
depends how you look at it.
Foods to be eliminated: brewers and bakers' yeast,
right.
Sugars, foods containing sugar, honey, sweeteners, refined flour, condiments, tomato sauce, mayonnaise, mustard, soya vinegar, pickled foods, processed foods, canned juices, dried fruit, fermented foods, alcohol, mushrooms, and peanuts. What we're left with?
A healthy diet.
Lots of grains, fresh
Lots of vegetables, grains, beans, proteins, fish, chicken, eggs, nuts and seeds, which for most people is a normal, healthy diet.
We can get yeast-free bread.
Well, for some that are adhering to it.
Okay.
For most people that live on a lot of the sugars
Right.
and pickled stuff, there's a sacrifice. But the thing about it is that what happens after a week or two, that those very same people don't require those foods any longer. Many clients after 2 weeks that never thought they could give up sugar said, I don't need them any longer. Because as the process is balanced out in the body, the need, the cravings
Right.
for sugars and refined carbohydrates is eliminated.
But bottom line is, you've got absolutely nothing to lose by giving up. If you've got these symptoms and you're eating these foods, all you have to do is change your diet here. We're not asking you to go out and buy a lot of expensive drugs or take an incredible treatment. We're asking you to go on a give up the junk food, the sugar,
Right.
yeast, alcohol, and eat lots of fresh fruit, vegetables, fish, protein, and grains.
That's right.
So what do you got to lose?
In fact, anybody will get better on that diet.
Yes. Now, if somebody watching has you know, say, oh yeah, I have those problems, and they simply go on this diet, one of the things, Carolyn, is you don't stay on this diet for a long time.
No, you don't stay on the diet for a long time, and you be very careful. You check with your doctor first if you have any health problems that would be affected by you changing a diet. You know what happens when you quit coffee? You can get withdrawal. People who've been on sugar forever can get withdrawal from sugar. People can get heart palpitations and feel really wretched, and you don't want to dive into something. You have to go carefully with supervision. And it's not just diet. We like to talk about diet because that gives it over to the individual to take responsibility. But there are yogurt pills or acidophilus, which is the good bacteria that you...
How do you say it?
Acidophilus.
That's one of my favorite words, acidophilus.
Yeah.
Acidophilus is the really good stuff.
It's the good
That's
stuff.
good.
Right.
You get it from breast milk, you get it from yogurt, you get it if you...
And as there's not a lot of breast milk for sale, you buy acidophilus instead, right?
Yeah. So when people also are allergic to dairy, they're not getting their yogurts or their acidophilus from dairy. So there are things that you can add to your diet. Garlic is a natural antifungal. You can take that. And then you can get into, if
Garlic-flavored yogurt, then, would really be the thing, Carolyn.
it could be a new line, yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Just one thing I want to say, these acidophilus, they're quite amazing, these little pills, because in the jar it says each pill contains 3 billion of these little things. And God, that's really amazing. And you can't take, can acidophilus hurt you? Can you ever take too much of it? Is it one of those things that at a certain point you start, I don't know, growing yourself?
I haven't really heard, but I would be judicious.
Okay.
Everybody should do everything in moderation.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, there has been some connection between Candida and autistic children. We're going to talk to a man in San Diego who heads up an institute that deals with autistic children. We'll talk to him in just a moment.